Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Career Chats. I'm Krista Harmon, a workforce development consultant with the Kent Intermediate School District. I'm so glad to have you here. I'm also very glad to have Tim Jury with us today. We're going to be focusing on some skilled trades today and his career path to the Director of Operations. Welcome, Tim.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So one way we like to get started on these career chats, Tim, is to take you back to your high school ages, your age, and did you think you'd grow up to be an HVAC or to be a director at this point? Tell us what you were thinking.
Well, the HVAC, I don't know, the director for sure, I didn't think that. So I think what I was thinking at 16, 17 is probably very similar to what a lot of 16 and 17-year-olds are thinking right now. And that's probably not focused on career, probably not having a great grasp on what they want to do, but maybe looking for someone to help say, this might fit you, and here's where you could land if these are the things you like to do. And I think that's part of the key to understanding that at that age, it's really difficult to grasp what 20 years down the road looks like. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So what kind of things were you into as a high school student? Did you know, did you have any idea what you want to do after high school, or was it pretty much looking at school?
Yeah, not a ton, to be honest. I mean, played football, was hanging out with looking for girlfriends and stuff like that. So I think, for my case, when I got out of school, I was very much not focused on what I was going to do, and didn't get started rolling with a career until a little bit later. I was kind of working some dead-end jobs, just hanging out with the buddies and doing those types of things. And for me, I had my first daughter at 21, and that kind of changed a little bit on what I was able to do. There wasn't a lot of time, and it wasn't fair to my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, that I would be able to do the hanging out and stuff like that, and she would be at home. So it was my daughter and my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, that drove me to look to try to see what 20 years down the road looks like. And when that's instilled in you, when you have something else you're responsible for besides your own self, it'll really make you weigh those decisions a little bit more with some more seriousness to them.
Yeah, and I love that advice, and that's a real story. A lot of high school students, they have what they want to do, but then life happens and you may end up with a child before you expect it. So how did you even decide then what to do? Did you have any other adults in your life that were giving you some guidance, some questions to ask you about what your talents and interests were, or tell me how that came to be then?
Well, to be completely honest, no, I didn't have a lot of that support system as I reached 21, 22, 23. I was on my own early. So it was more for me, honestly, how can I get into a trade, out of that trade school and into the workforce quickly. And so that's essentially what I started looking for, was trade schools that would be able to, get me through that program and get me into the workforce so I could begin that career. And for me, I found a local school, local trade school here near me called Northwestern Technological Institute. Went there, and it was about 11 months, 10 and a half months, and start to finish. And I did really well in that school because I was focused, and it was different than going to high school where there's a lot of distraction and things like that. For me, the trade school was, I had to focus. I had a job to do. I had a goal to meet. And so I was able to really grasp on and picked it up well. I really liked working with my hands and the tools and that type of stuff. And that's kind of where it grew into a love for me, was, the ability for it to keep your interest. And after that, found a job and started my career from there.
That's fantastic. That, like you said, it was a maturity thing, that all of a sudden you had these responsibilities and you were able to buckle down and get busy with it. Tell us a little bit about that technical institute type of training, because we have some guidance counselors on, or school counselors on this call, and students, and some people may not know about that kind of training opportunity. What would you like us to know?
Yeah, so a trade school essentially is, they'll provide you with a completion certificate, and based on your GPA during that trade school, you can have different kind of endorsements, or and it's not a college, right? So now there are some college courses, some associates programs within some of your community colleges that do this. They're a little bit longer in that case, but the trade school is effectively half bookwork, half you're working on the machines and you're really learning it, and there's a great amount of people that learn far better with having their hands dirty and working in there than they will studying out of any book. we had a coworker of mine recently said to me, I could read a book on brain surgery. That doesn't make me a brain surgeon. And it's still one of the funniest things, because it's like, you're right. I could read all these books on heating, cooling, electrical, but could I actually do it? It's not necessarily, it doesn't transfer. But a lot of these trade schools, almost all of them, you're going to do some book time, but you're also going to be in there working with the electricity and learning what to touch, what not to touch type of stuff. And there's a really good aspect of that with it too.
So what's the tuition like? And I know we can research this, but is this like the same kind of cost of going off to college? Is it a big commitment?
Well, we got to rewind 18 years, and at the rate of inflation and stuff, I don't know. Honestly, back then when I got it, when I went through the school, I went and took every grant I could get, filed everything I could get to get it covered. I think at that time it was probably 10, 11 grand. I think now they're closer to 15K, to be honest. But the one thing you can take advantage of is a lot of these trade schools understand that the reason why you're taking it, whether it's a college is cost inhibitive to you, or whether it's just not for you. I honestly think I paid 20, 30 bucks a month for like 10 years, and it was just gone, and it was caught up, and that was it. So that there's not a lot of financial burden in the moment. So it's affordable as you stretch it out.
Yeah, that's great. It's good to know, and encouragement to young people to check out trade schools as a training option, because again, it doesn't get talked about as much as it should. So you're at the school, you're hands-on, you're loving it, really finding that passion for it. What would you like to know looking back? Would you have done anything different in that you maybe in high school? Is there anything young people could be doing if they know they're good with their hands to prepare for a school like that?
Well, I think so. I think if that particular high school offers any of those vocational classes and vocational programs, even if it's auto shop, right? And then you decide, hey, I want to go into HVAC. Some of the tools are the same. Some of the theories are the same in how you work with, whether it's combustion or things like that. There's a lot of transferable theory from one trade to the other. So any vocational stuff that you're interested in, it's not necessarily, although it's very important, right? But it's not necessarily algebra and science, right? If you've got the opportunity for some of that vocational training and vocational stuff, maybe a vocational co-op or something like that, I would take advantage of that at a young age to get yourself started quickly.
So HVAC, heating, venting, and air conditioning. For those that might not be as familiar with this trade, tell us the big picture, what that's all about.
Well, it's essentially furnace and air conditioning, more or less, right? Encompassed in that is refrigeration equipment, your Kroger, your Myers, those freezers, those coolers, your party stores, a lot of different things like that. Some industrial chillers and things like that. What we're kind of focused on here is residential furnace air conditioning replacements and service. And so we will start with a homeowner that the furnace is broken, it's aged, whatever that is, and it's time to go, right? And we go in there and one day we start from scratch, removal, rebuild the whole process, put it together, give them a product that we and they can both be proud of, and create that comfort. And it's key to understand within the heating and cooling. This is something, we may touch on later, but no one can live without it. It has to happen. Michigan is one of those states where we certainly can't live without our furnace, and maybe we can live through the summer. It'd be a struggle, right, without air conditioning, but certainly 95% of people got to have that air conditioning too. And until they automate a robot to go in there and fix it or install it, our trade is safe from that right now. So.
Yeah, that's something to be said. And I feel like one of the other just positives about your trade is that you're kind of like the hero, right? So as far as our personal values, when you show up, people are like, yay, he's here. And I feel like that not every trade has that.
No, that's right. And when I first got into the trade and I would, I'd start fixing things and helping people, there was a lot of gratitude. Thank you so much. And I'd get home to my wife on a hot summer's day and she'd be like, oh, you got to work in air conditioning all day. And I would say, man, as soon as I fix it, I got to leave. I don't get any of that, so, but it's very gratifying to come across someone that's really struggling with that piece of equipment not working and they just don't know anything about it. And you're able to get in there, kind of explain onto them what they're looking at, how we can get them out of that jam and help them out.
Yeah, as a person who is literally a righty-tighty, lefty-loosey type of person, I very much admire your natural skill sets and so grateful for people in the trades. Why don't you go ahead and share your slides, Tim, and maybe take us through about what your typical day might be as an HVAC person, and you could probably venture in and share a little bit about that career path and how you're director of operations, because that might tie in with your slides as well.
Sure.
And I think you bring up a good point about the residential versus commercial. I think a lot of people don't think about that. Those industrial size coolers and air conditioning too are part of this, not just at the residential level.
Yeah, that's correct. So you guys see the HVAC, right?
Yes.
So again, a quick thing I put together to kind of give us a visual and how we operate, right? So our basic day and process would start with a homeowner speaking with one of our comfort advisors and deciding, hey, I need some new equipment. They would then turn that in with the measurements of what's going to be necessary on that job, whether we install that job tomorrow, whether the homeowner has said, hey, I'm available in 2 weeks, we'll do it then. Either way, the process stays the same. So if we see to the left here, that's our plasma machine. And as you can see, as it's cut out there, that's a large sheet of metal that goes on there. It's programmed, the laser cuts it out. Those sheets are then transferred and bent and hammered into place to make what's called your return air filtration boot. So it starts within the metal fabrication part of it. Okay. From there, the metal will be added to our jobs here. This is kind of a half a day getting ready to be drawn out in the morning. These are a couple of generators here on the backside. There's furnace and air conditioners. Obviously, if you're not familiar, it just looks like a box, right? But the box is paired with everything that's necessary for the installation crew to come here in the morning, load this pile up, get all their odds and ends, and then they go. They spend, 8-9 hours at the customer's home, and they pull out the old, put in the new, nice and shiny, looks fantastic like Christmas morning. But that's all done ahead of that team. So they don't have a ton of worrying about the ins and outs, right? Because we're asking them to do a pretty tough job as it is. So we want to keep the ins and outs taken care of on the front end as best we can. So that's our staging process. And obviously all that adds up to, we see our before here on the left. Nothing too horrible looking about that, right? But it's a little older. Those furnaces are probably mid 90s, late 90s. And you can see on our after picture, this is kind of how we leave it. Obviously, much upgraded, much cleaner. Everything looks really, really nice. And again, that's a 20-year investment. So we want that thing to look really good for our customers. Just another one. This one, even on the left, is probably even older. That's closer to probably 40 years old. So that one got the homeowner a good long run, and it was time to upgrade. And you can see the system on the right, what 40 years difference kind of looks like there when it comes from mechanical equipment. And that's kind of how we leave our customers' homes, neat, clean, and with operating equipment that looks really, really good.
Well, you're also part of helping our earth be greener, right? Because that's efficiency that's coming with those newer ones. So that probably feels good too. Absolutely.
Those, the couple that I just showed you are high efficiencies, and that's generally what over 95% of our customers are going to now. Is high efficiency. It's almost unheard of that we're not going high efficiency. Now there's some building requirements and things like that that may say we're not able to do that for a customer. Condominiums and stuff like that are a little sketchy, but most people like to go high efficiency. So, and with our government rebates and things like that, it almost makes the price point very equal. So it's really an easy upgrade. And so we also have an electrical department here. As I spoke a little bit about generators, I know we're talking the HVAC trade, but again, we have electricians here. So that's another trade, obviously very smart guys, those guys are. So, and this is just a picture of a generator that we installed, and power goes out like we've had in the last couple of weeks with these storms. This thing kicks over and you're off and running with power in a matter of 2-3 seconds. And when the power is restored, it automatically shuts off. And it's a very beneficial thing to have.
Yeah, I need to get one of those. That's on my to-do list.
They're certainly nice. And I wouldn't, I have to pay homage to my team here. As we can see, our little Christmas party we put together. This is essentially our east side team over here. We have another building on the west side of the state, but as we can see, we get together, we try to have a good time, because this entire team, whether it's the office personnel, the field personnel, our comfort advisors, all of that goes into our overall team success. And we could never accomplish this without all of these trades guys, and all the young ladies that work with us as well.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
I
go
had to
ahead.
brag just a little bit. This is our 4th year running, top workplace. So I had to throw that slide in here. So we
Well,
work
you should
really
be
hard
proud
to
of that.
keep
That's
that.
fantastic. And as young people watch these career chats, it's not only finding a place that's going to use your skills, but a place that has good culture and you want to go every Monday. So I think that's important to showcase that, Tim. Sure. So you mentioned you obviously have a history in HVAC and you have electricians there. What other trades, and especially even those ones that maybe are technicians that are part of that ladder to get to some of these spots, give us a sense of what else is out there for kids to know that make the team up.
Okay, so essentially heating and cooling is really based a lot around electrical, gas, plumbing. The old saying is, a jack of all trades, a master of none, right? And that's so we take a little offense to that, because we as HVAC guys think we're a master of all. But there's a lot of electrical wrapped up in there. We work on, disconnecting gas lines. We work on plumbing, hot water tanks. There is a lot of the trades blended into this. And when we get to our specialized equipment, like your generators, that is where, we do need a licensed electrician on those. So, but again, they're part of the team. And when we have a HVAC system that we need a hand with, the electricians switch gears right over and say, all right, well, let's get that going. And you guys help me with this part. And so there's a lot of different trades wrapped up into this. Like I said, generally the ones you really should have a good base knowledge of after you go through school and start to work on some things would be your heating, cooling, refrigeration, electrical, and plumbing are all tied into this almost on a daily basis.
That's great. And you have mentioned just like the word guys a couple times. Are there many women in this trade? And what would you like for young women who are watching this to understand that they're needed in this trade? Tell us why.
Absolutely. Obviously, I think with our trade, and I guess I can't speak to all trades, but in general, it's the majority is men, right? But we've had a couple of young ladies that have worked for us in our maintenance and installation department, and they have been phenomenal. What you'll find is a little bit where young ladies will tend to see the bigger picture a little bit better, because guys can sometimes be that bull in a china shop and not slow it down and say, what's the big picture? What's the care part of it? But they are absolutely needed. Every time we're kind of bringing a group in here, we love to see it when we do get some young ladies on the application or the resume process. There is a place for everyone in this trade. And we are one of the companies that is certainly embracing that at every turn. To me, it's not about seeing a resume with a name or where you live. It's about, let me see what it looks like. And even if you don't have experience, right? What's the relevant experience? Did you work with tools at this last job? Or were you there 6 years and you're looking for a career change? Your attendance, right? Those types of things are all transferable to a different company, different trade.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You obviously went through a trade school to learn your craft. Do you tell us about apprenticeships? Is that another way that people can get to you?
Yeah, certainly. We prefer, there's kind of two thoughts here in regard to HVAC. There is either service and repair or there's installation, right? So service and repair requires a lot of the theory, a lot of diagram reading, some of the things that we really need you to have a base knowledge of before we can kind of let you roam with some of that stuff. Installation is you're paired with a partner who's kind of a more senior guy. You've got the boxes of the new equipment. You're going to install it. Still very, very difficult job. But when you install it, it's expected that it works, right? So there's not a ton of troubleshooting and things like that. So the trade school is really a good start for a service and diagnosis technician. But we certainly have apprenticeships where, we bring these people in, these young people in most cases, and they'll work with, an elder statesman or stateswoman at that point to learn the ropes with some in-house training. We've got an in-house training room as well that we use with equipment, and it's real life scenarios, and we can create mishaps and say, hey man, here's what we're experiencing. Can you diagnose this for me? So apprenticeships are certainly a way to get in as well. The kind of the way I equate it a little bit is this HVAC business is, let's say it's a 15-step staircase. That first step is the biggest, and that's where the trade schools get some of the students to. When we get them at the top of that first step, we can get them the next 14 because they're smaller increments. And so it is helpful. I won't say it's impossible, you know.
Yeah, and just for those young people that aren't familiar with apprenticeships, it's typically 4 years of training that you're getting paid your wages, your health benefits, your vacation as you're learning. So again, if paying for it, you don't want to go into debt, it's a great way to earn while you learn. So be sure to Google apprenticeships if that's not something you're familiar with. Young people, Tim, love to know what your favorite part of your job is and what's your least favorite.
All right, I did jot these down a little bit earlier. So again, I think my view of that's changed a little bit just with kind of where I'm at and where I started in the trade. But as a field service technician, the thing I enjoyed the most was the variety of issues and problems that presented themselves through the equipment to me. And I was able to diagnose that where somebody else couldn't and get a homeowner back on track, whether it be heating, cooling, or whatever that case was. That was a solid feeling of kind of where the gratitude came from a homeowner. And it's like, hey, I got you, just relax and let me help get you there. And I have a great theory to that. I've always been just very comfortable with people, and I was at a customer's home and it was late one night, because there's some on call to it too, which I'll talk to in a second, but they didn't have any heat, and some of these things are getting fairly advanced, right? And I'm troubleshooting with my meter, and the guy's 2 and 3 times, hey, what's wrong? Hey, what's wrong? Hey, what's wrong? And I said, hey, I tell you what, you'll be the second person to know if you just let me work through this for just a minute, and he said, all right, I read you loud and clear, because it's one of those things, you're in a cold house, it's late. I'm like, I just got to focus, but it was pretty funny. And, but they're always very gracious when you're done and you get them back squared away.
Yeah. So is that part of the least favorite when you have customers that are picking at your ear?
Well, customers, there's all kinds of people in this world, right? So customers, not so much. You kind of expect that and take each one with a grain of salt. But probably the least favorite from my aspect was some of the on-call stuff, right? Where it's 2 a.m, it's 0 degrees outside and someone needs you. Now, the key that makes that at least palpable and at least bearable is when you work for a company that kind of values your time, and they're able to create a rotation where each guy just takes a day every 3 weeks or whatever that is. And really, it can only be super demanding when it's 90 and humid or 20 below. The rest of the time it ain't so bad because there's not a lot of people a lot of people say, I'll just wait till the morning, we'll be fine, or whatever that is.
Yeah, I could see that on-call thing would be tough. One of the things that educators are working with their young people are around the soft skills, things like teamwork, cooperation, critical thinking. What would you like young people to know why those are so important? Why should they be learning those, and how do those apply when you're in a job like yours?
Well, a lot of soft skills is a huge focus with us. It's really odd, when you meet some younger people or whatever that is, any person. If kind of just talking to people comes fairly natural, you're like, hey, just do this. Hey, just do this. And they're like, well, that's just not me. I don't do that. We're brought up not to talk to strangers, but in this industry, we need you to talk to strangers, right? So that is something we focus on. We train on it just about twice a month. We'll get the group in, we'll do some role play, because again, we'll have a customer that may need an additional item, and it's like, hey, you may need this. Well, why? Well, let me tell you why it's going to help you, how it can help you, and that kind of stuff. But the soft skills, and for me, growing up, we talked on the phone, with each other, and I think now a lot of texting and stuff from as you grew up, and now you're in high school, and my son is a great example. Talking to my oldest son on the phone can be odd because he's like, there's these weird pauses, but you text back and forth, and it's great. And then we get home at the dinner table and it's great. But it's just one of those things where getting somebody comfortable having a conversation with maybe a stranger or a customer, however you want to view it, it takes a little work, to be effective. So that is definitely an area of focus for us too, especially in a business where you're a service company. You're in somebody's home. We've got to be gracious at how we're entering. How do we treat the floors if our boots are muddy? All those types of things.
Yeah, that's where that customer service, and probably your company, gets set apart from other companies if you're doing those extra things, for sure. Looking back when you were young, Tim, do you,
Wait.
oh,
I am still young. Well, that's clear.
okay, let me rephrase that. Thinking back to when you were in high school, you're 16, because you are young. I'm older than you by a decade or so. Do you look back, were there any clues that were already showing that you would have been good at this work if you would have maybe had some career development in high school? Or is it really one of those things that you just weren't really showing any clues of being good with hands-on and problem solver, or was that showing up early?
Not a ton. So, my dad was an auto mechanic, so I helped him a little bit, worked a little bit. It was never really my thing, where I think I began where I think if I look back, if someone could have helped me, say, hey, this might work for you, is I think I was probably a good critical thinker. I was good at why is this doing this and how do I stop it from doing it or fixing it? What are the steps to get there? Reading, some more diagram type stuff. When you can look at a diagram, make sense of it and say, all right, I understand this. Those are cues that I could be good at diagnosing things if I can follow the sequence and what that information looks like. So for me, working with my hands and tools, that didn't come till I started in school. And I said, okay, I would fix things around the house, little stuff, but once I got in school and I was able to gain some of the knowledge of how gas works, how electricity works, how plumbing works, I got pretty comfortable with that. And then it just kind of, you build on that and gain different wins in the day. And sometimes you have some losses in the day, like, oh, I think I handled that wrong, or I didn't do that correctly. But the key, like I tell a lot of, younger people that come into this trade or come into our building is, I don't expect you to be perfect, right? What I expect and what I hope is that you make that tough mistake once, and then you put it back there and say, I remember that one. So that's what we ask. But I think some of the critical thinking skills and problem solving skills, I think, is probably where, had that been festered a little bit or helped me along, it could have been, a sign.
Yeah, and I love the descriptions you gave of those skill sets. And for young people that are watching this, I want you to think about how you naturally think, because those are the skills that you have naturally. And this is the kind of job that will really utilize them so well. So I think you did a great job at that for sure. As a young person is looking at this now, Tim, and thinking, HVAC could be something for me. What are some things they can do in high school? I know that here in Grand Rapids, we have the Kent Career Technical Center. We do have an HVAC program here. So certainly young people should be thinking about a tech school. Do you guys do job shadows, any type of tours to get young people in? What else could they be checking out?
Well, I think tours is certainly an option. I think job shadowing in our business is difficult because there's a lot of liability in there, right? So that can be difficult. Again, I think looking towards whether it be trade school or even an associate's, right? Some of those different colleges and schools will offer co-ops that we can bring guys or gals on for I think 6 weeks, and they go spend a week in the shop, spend a week with service and maintenance, then spend a week with installation. They get a feel for that whole thing. And that's a good key way to see, am I going to be able to fit in or handle this, or is this not the right direction? But like I said, taking advantage of whatever vocational or co-ops you can that may even be partly related to it, right? Where you're going to get the use of some tools to do some things. Even like I said, if it's auto mechanics or wood shop, how do you work with tools? Do they come naturally? Do you know the lingo for tools, or do you pick that up? And do you see how things go together and come apart? That's a key to all of the trades, really.
Yeah, and we're very fortunate in Kent County to have such a great program, and we do let students come in. So students, if you're watching this, or your parents, we can get you in for a tour and really to see what it's all about. Well, that 30 minutes went real fast. We have a minute for you to kind of share your final word of wisdom, Tim. What would you like these young people and their school counselors to know?
Again, let me just take a quick look, because I jotted some notes down. So I think part of what I would say is don't fear the unknown, right? So you don't know what you want to do. Man, if I go to a trade school, or if I take up an electrical apprentice, am I going to like it? Am I going to fail in? You can look as a 16, 17-year-old kid, you can look at your favorite teacher, the doctor that gives you your checkups. All of these people had fear about where do they start, and I'm a very prime example of it's not necessarily where you start, okay? Because again, we spoke a little bit briefly in the front end there, but I didn't have a great start to kind of my adult life. I had some hurdles I had to get over. I had to get over them, on my own and figure that out. And it might take some time to figure out, but the end result is you know, you can really set yourself up nicely to, whether it's start a family, buy a home, buy a car, whatever that is. The trades are generally a fairly high paying skilled trades career for you. So you can build off that, and don't fear what you don't understand just yet. And I would also preface that a little bit with, and I know this may not be what you guys are focusing on, but it may not happen at 17 or 18. You might not have that click till you're 21 and you have a kid and all that good stuff, right? But just understand that 20 years down the road is going to show up, whether you like it or not. So there's a, you know, kind of a saying that we say a little bit around here is time's going to pass, whether you're doing something or whether you're doing nothing. So you might as well do something, because that time is going to go by either way. So I would encourage people to go out on a limb a little bit, whether it's HVAC, you know, plumbing, electrical, whatever trade that may be, auto mechanic, things like that. Those are trades that are very much in demand now. And we see, like you said a little bit earlier, we see parents saying, hey, the trade may be for you, because college isn't for everyone. Not everyone has the ability to run another 4 years marathon after they just ran a 12-year marathon, right? Because the thought of 4 more years of school for some of our seniors here is going to be pretty tough to swallow, if I had to guess. So there's other options, and I encourage people to get out there, work with their hands, look what it looks like to you know, to get out there and make a living before you're 22, getting out of college or whatever that is. And again, there's options out there.
Well, you've been a great role model today, Tim. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me.